Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, January 16th. I hope everybody is having a great day so far. We have a lot to get into today. The main story, as the title says, is the news that came out today via CBS Sports that Bill Belichick is still a coaching free agent. He has yet to sign his contract, which might lead to some craziness in the NFL head coaching market. Then we'll talk about that market a little bit. Which of the 6 open spots are the most desirable? We'll rank them 1 to 6, as well as going over the Cavaliers versus Thunder game that just started off. We'll talk about what that game's going to look like and how it is currently going when we get there. Some potential changes to rules in the next season of college football and the college football playoff structure, and an update on free agency. Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman in the MLB. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up later on the show. But before we get into Bill Belichick, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, January 16th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our first topic of the day, that having to do with Bill Belichick, the greatest coach in the history of the National Football League, who moved over to North Carolina about a month ago, but came out today that he has not officially yet signed his contract. And to me, this seemed like a big deal. Now, I did a little bit more digging into it. I'm going to show you exactly what I found. But at the end of the day, this story is not as big of a deal as it might sound. Bill Belichick seemingly is still committed to North Carolina. North Carolina and him have a basically a napkin agreement, right? The agreement that he has signed is sometimes referred to as a proposal of consent to terms and conditions. So he hasn't officially hammered out everything in that contract. They're still going to work out the little nooks and crannies in the contract and try and figure it out for what's better for both sides. But the important part for this is that it's not a legally binding agreement. It says in the language of that agreement that it shall, quote, not constitute a binding agreement. So this is not something where he is legally forced to be that head coach. He hasn't signed that contract for North Carolina. So he is still technically a free agent. And this is a big news. This was where I first saw reported CBS Sports by Jonathan Jones earlier today. This is huge news, right? Again, because the coaching carousel in the NFL is underway. This is prime time, and a lot of people, including myself, were worried that the main reason that Bill Belichick wasn't going to get offers or looks in the NFL was because of that $10 million buyout that he or the team would have to pony up in order to get him over to be the head coach. Now, for some owners, that wouldn't be an issue. Jerry Jones, if he really wanted Bill Belichick and the $10 million was the only issue standing in their way, he would go get Bill Belichick for those $10 million. That's not a big issue. But other issues, other owners, maybe like the Jets owner, might not be as willing to go out and pay that $10 million. That is now no longer an issue, at least it never was. It's not an issue that is stopping teams from interviewing him. Now the question is, how much interest is he actually going to get? Bill Belichick is a guy that I think would love to come back to the NFL. I think he's committed himself to UNC this season, so I don't see too much movement this coaching cycle. But maybe next year, 2 years from now, there is a chance that Bill Belichick is back in the NFL. Now this year, I think there's one spot that I think would stand out, especially for a guy like him, and that is the New York Jets, right? It's a place that he technically was a head coach of for a time. He ends up leaving before the season starts, going back to the Patriots, but that's a spot where you're going to need an aging coach. That's why guys like Rex Ryan are your top candidates to get that job with the New York Jets. Now they're going out there and they're interviewing guys. Aaron Rodgers said in an interview today with the Jets that he would come back depending on the GM and the head coach. Of course, that's how it's going to go. If he likes it, he'll come back. If the GM and head coach like it, then they'll have him back. It's going to be one of those situations where it's going to be mutual consent. But Bill Belichick, still being an unsigned free agent in the head coaching world, throws a wrench into, I think, a lot of different teams' plans. Now, again, digging deeper into this in the article on CBS Sports, one of the key things is that this is somewhat normal in the coaching world. Now, it seemed like a big story out of the gate, but this is somewhat normal in the coaching world. Bill Belichick and mostly schools, for some reason, they were talking to a contract expert, tend to drag their feet on a lot of these things. He said he did not know why. But right now, Bill Belichick is on the recruiting trail. Everything that he said and everything that he's done through his actions, through his coaching hires, through everything that he's prepared for this season, it just doesn't seem like Bill Belichick is going to leave North Carolina. Now, if a right offer comes, if Jerry Jones calls him up and says, "Hey, Bill Belichick, come coach the Dallas Cowboys," I'm sure he would leave. But right now, I think first things first, he needs to sign that contract. Second thing, and the reason he needs to sign that contract is because I think one of the main reasons that he decided to go and coach for North Carolina is because one of the stipulations in there is that his son, Steven Belichick, would be the next head coach once he left. I think that's something that's very important to him, very important to Steven Belichick, that he gets that kind of handpicked successor, has that next guy in line for when he eventually does retire. Because Bill Belichick is in his 70s. He is a guy that's not going to be coaching for the next 10, 15 years. And North Carolina understands that. That's something that I think needs to happen first. I'm not sure if this contract holdup is on Bill Belichick's end, if it's on North Carolina end, and they're still trying to work out just a couple more things in the contract, but I think that's something that they're waiting on. I don't see Bill Belichick leaving the college ranks this season. I think he stays there, but he is technically a free agent, so we will figure that out as more time continues. But let me know what your thoughts are. Does this affect what you think about Bill Belichick? Is he still going to be the coach for the North Carolina Tar Heels, or is he leaving for the NFL now that we all know that he has not yet signed his contract to be the head coach there yet? Love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we rank the 6 destinations for potential NFL head coaches, 1 through 6, on the scale of how desirable they are to go to. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, January 16th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over Bill Belichick not being an official signed head coach by the UNC Tar Heels. Kind of something that actually is normal for schools, something that I did not know in the past, but still a big story nonetheless. In this segment, we turn our attention to the coaching carousel in the NFL. We have 6 open spots. We're going to rank them 1 to 6 and give them a 1 to 10 ranking for how desirable they are as a spot to go to. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, January 16th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the coaching destinations as far as desirability goes. And we're not going to do this 1 to 6. We're going to go a little bit out of order, and we're going to rank them 1 to 10 on how desirable they are. We're going to start out with the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints here are a team that is in cap purgatory right now, right? They have no money. They don't have that many super great draft picks. They're locked into a guy in Derek Carr that's not going to be great for the future of their franchise. They paid him a lot of money just a couple of off seasons ago. Still a couple more years before you can get him off of the books. Not something that necessarily you're trying to rush, but the Saints' job for me is the least desirable job in the NFL. You have, again, no cap to spend in free agency. This is not going to be a team that's going to be an easy rebuild. In fact, they're entering their rebuild period right now. You're getting in while the iron is hot, and you have the ability to, if you really want to rebuild a team in your own image, come here and do that. But it's not a team that's set for a clean rebuild right now. Doesn't have the money, doesn't have a quarterback, doesn't have a pick that's high enough to get a quarterback. So this is not a super desirable job in my eyes. The Saints, in my opinion, if I had to give it an out of 10 ranking, is a 3 out of 10 ranking if I was a coach trying to decide which job to take. At number 5, we have the Jets, and I think the Jets and a couple other teams on this list could be a little bit interchangeable. The reason I have the Jets so low is because of Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers is going to be this team whether you like it or not, right? If you don't like it, he's gone, and then you need a quarterback in the worst possible way, and there are not enough quarterbacks out there. So this is a team that, in my mind, is hiring a coach and a GM that is willing to work with Aaron Rodgers. I'd be shocked if they didn't pick a coach or GM that was willing to work with Aaron Rodgers, or one that Aaron Rodgers would like to work with. Now, I don't know what that's going to entail, how much power Aaron Rodgers is going to have. Hopefully, in a perfect world, he just has a little bit of input in saying, hey, I don't like this guy, I don't want him, instead of, hey, I will accept this guy if I get to control this, this, and this. That's one of those things that you have to be careful with when you're dealing with Aaron Rodgers. He's a good quarterback, and I still think he can turn it around. He's a guy that had a bit of a down year, but as we talked about last week, he still put up like 3,900 yards, 28 touchdowns, and just 12 interceptions, which isn't great for him, but it's a pretty solid season for just about anybody else. You throw that stat line onto Sam Darnold, and honestly, it's basically the same as Sam Darnold. About 300 less yards, but almost the same amount of touchdowns and interceptions. He had a 90 quarterback rating. Aaron Rodgers wasn't really the issue over there in New York, and he wasn't solving all the problems, no doubt about it. But he's going to stay in New York most likely for this next season, and if you're a coach, you need to understand that, and you need to be able to work with him. Because of that, I'm putting the Jets a little bit lower on my list because you just don't have that much flexibility, and you're going into a situation where 2 years from now, you're going to be maybe the worst team in the league because this team is designed to crash and burn. This team is designed to go up as high as they possibly can for 1 year, and then, the gas is out. Once Aaron Rodgers retires, they're going to fall back down to earth, and they're going to explode on the ground. And then you're going to be in the middle of a deep, deep rebuild. Not the best spot to go to. But for now, I'd have to go 4 out of 10 for the Jets, and they're our number 5 team. And number 4, it's the Raiders. They're a little bit higher on the Jets. I'd also give them a 4 out of 10 as far as their desirability schedule, their ranking, I should say. There aren't too many teams in this year's coaching carousel that I'm super excited to go to if I'm a free agent coach. The Raiders are this low on the list, or the reason they're a little bit higher than the Jets on this list is because they have the cap space to work with, right? They have the ability to spend in free agency. They have some of the most money this year and next year in all of the NFL. That's a really good spot to be in when you're a rebuilding team. The reason they're this low is because they just don't have a quarterback. And that's going to be the thing for a lot of these teams, especially in the bottom half of this list. They just don't have a quarterback, or they don't have a quarterback that a lot of people would be happy to work with, right? The Raiders need a quarterback badly. They can't seriously go into next season and be happy with Aiden O'Connell as their starting quarterback again. I can't imagine that that's something that they would be just all flowers and roses and sunshine with, right? That's not something I expect them to do. There's not a free agent quarterback that I really look at and say they need to go get, although I'm sure they would spend all the money to do it. And unless they make a big move in this draft, they're not in range to go get one of those quarterbacks that's really worth drafting in the first round. Now, could I see the Raiders making a move in the first round? I could. They're one of those teams that I feel like could be aggressive. They kind of stood pat at their spot last year and let everybody else take a quarterback. Obviously, we saw how that worked out. I would have done the same thing in their shoes, honestly. But now they're kind of running out of time. They need to go get a quarterback, and they don't want to have a repeat of what happened this year where everybody else worked out and they just did not get their guy. If they can get a quarterback, if you can find a quarterback that you really like in free agency, this is a really good spot to land in. But because they don't have a quarterback and it's not looking like they're going to be able to get one in the draft, the Raiders are here with a 4 out of 10 at number 4. At number 3 on my list, it's the Dallas Cowboys. And this is where we start to get a little positive. This is a Dallas Cowboys team that is set for the future, right? They have their franchise quarterback. They have their franchise wide receiver. They need to sign Micah Parsons. They don't have any cap space. They've got $4 million of cap left. They have the team with the least amount of cap space available that is still in the positives at like 27th in the league right now. They are not looking very good for free agency, which is why they weren't super high up on the list. But the good thing about the Cowboys is they have all the major pieces. They have the quarterback in Dak Prescott. You're not going there if you don't like Dak Prescott. The defense had a down year last year, but it's got a lot of pieces. It's got a guy in Micah Parsons who you need to re-sign, but is pretty clearly one of the best defensive players in all of the NFL when he is out there. This season, when he was healthy, he completely transformed that defense into a solid unit. This is a team that has a lot of pieces. If you can get everything going right, if you can keep them healthy, which is a big thing, this is a really good Cowboys team, and it's a good job. The issue is you just don't have a lot of flexibility, and you're going to have to deal with all of the attention that happens when you go and be the coach for the Dallas Cowboys, which can be a positive and can be a negative. So for now, I'm putting them here at a nice neutral 6. You just don't have a lot of wiggle room. You're going to just kind of have to deal with the cards that you're dealt right now. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for the Cowboys. It's a solid team, but you just need to figure out how to get those pieces moving in the right direction and find a way to fit them together to get the whole puzzle put together. At number 2, I'm actually putting the Jaguars ahead of the Cowboys on this list. And I'm giving them both 6 out of 10 for desirability score, right? Where I'd like to go. The reason I'm putting the Jaguars ahead of the Cowboys is because they have that extra flexibility. The Cowboys are kind of, like I said, stuck in the mud with what they have. You see the roster now. largely it's going to be the same next season unless they do some crazy overhaul in the draft, unless they trade some massive piece and go get a couple other guys. This is basically the same team that they're going to be running back. The Jaguars, on the other hand, if you really like Trevor Lawrence, this is a team that you want to go to. Obviously, they're locked in with Trevor Lawrence, which to me isn't necessarily a bad thing. I like Trevor Lawrence. I think if he gets the right coach in there to develop him, a nice offensive guy that can put him in successful situations to win, he could be a very good quarterback in the NFL. You have a couple pieces that I like. The running back tandem of Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby is something that I really do enjoy, and I think that's something you can build off of. You have Brian Thomas Jr., who just was a top 5 receiver in all of the NFL. The offense is you got stuff to build around. You've got a nice pass rushing duo on the defensive line with Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker, who have developed nicely. This is a team with a lot of pieces. You just need to get the right staff in there, and you have a lot of money in free agency to go out and get a couple guys, especially on the defensive end, that could potentially make this team better, shore up the offensive line. This is a team that has its foundation set, and it's a team that has money for you to build and bring your guys in a little bit. That's a spot that I'd like to go to. It is Jacksonville, so it's not super high on everybody's list, but for me, it's number 2, the second most desirable spot. It is just a 6 out of 10, though. But at number 1, it's the Bears. The Chicago Bears are the best landing spot this year, and I don't think it's particularly close. You have the number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams, a guy that I really do still believe in. You need to shore up that offensive line, no doubt about it, but the Bears have enough money to go and spend in free agency. They've got a top 10 draft pick this year to build around and get an offensive lineman. They can go out, and that defense is really good right now, right? You have the weapons offensively. The only thing you need is to fix that offensive line and to develop Caleb just a little bit more. Teach him that he needs to get the quickly. He needs to trust his weapons, trust his coach, and mind in there. That Bears team is going to skyrocket. Now, that is a lot of ifs, but I think when you look at it on paper, the Bears are the best team to go to as a free agent head coach. And if I had my pick, if all 6 teams said, Jeremy, I want you to be the head coach for my football team, the Bears are the one that I am signing with right now and for the future. I give them an 8 out of 10. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What's your ranking for desirability score for all 6 of these teams? Once again, Saints 6, Jets 5, Raiders 4, Cowboys 3, Jags 2, and the Bears number 1. Love to hear your thoughts on that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the NBA. A battle of the best right now is taking place between the top teams in the Eastern and the Western Conference. We're going to talk about how that game is going and why I think it's going the way it is. We're going to talk about what needs to happen for each team to win and much more. Coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, January 16th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the desirability of all 6 open spots in the NFL for coaching positions. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NBA, a battle of the best taking place currently in Oklahoma City. The 2 top teams in each of their conferences are clashing. We're going to talk about that game. It is not going the way that I thought it was going to, and especially not the way when we started our show. We're going to talk about why it is going that way right now in just a second. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, January 16th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into the battle of the best here in the NBA. We saw this matchup take place just about a week ago when these two matched up in Cleveland, Ohio. That saw the Cavaliers take down the Oklahoma City Thunder 129-122. In that game, it was a complete domination by the Cleveland Bigs, that being, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. They absolutely dominated down low, and at the beginning of this game, it was going the same way. Now, the Cavaliers, as it has been a trend basically all game, have not been able to make their shots, right? They are shooting just 26% from, never mind. Hard to talk about the NBA while it's going live. It's a very fast game. They were at 26% when we started this segment. They're on a bit of a run right now, up to 35% from three, cutting into the lead a little bit. But they went on a scoring drought for about half of the first quarter, where they barely scored any points, and that's where Oklahoma City really started to pull ahead. Now, if you see a Cleveland team that can shoot the ball a little bit and get the ball out the way that they have in these last couple seconds, this game will be a lot closer. But the way that they were dominating down low was something that I thought was very impressive, both in this game and in the last game. And I thought this was going to be a little bit even harder for the Thunder to have a real shot in this one. And the reason why is because Isaiah Hartenstein, their center, is out for this game. He suffered an injury in his last game. He is out for at least another week, and he had a huge game when they were taking on the Cavs in Cleveland. Now, again, when the Cavaliers struggle to shoot the ball as they have in this game, it's going to be a little bit of a different story. They're starting to claw their way back right now. It's 41-59, but this is a game that the Thunder are just kind of winning. They're not turning the ball over as much as the Cleveland Cavaliers are. 11 turnovers to 4 minutes to go in the second quarter right now. Cleveland needs to fix that turnover problem. They need to start shooting the way that we know they do. But the way that they've been able to dominate on the inside, even while losing this game, is something to see. And it's a reason why even right now, down by just about 20 points, they're not out of this game yet. This is going to be a potential NBA Finals matchup, right? We have, again, the top teams in the West versus the top team in the East. You get one of these teams that has not lost in the Cleveland Cavaliers against the Western Conference all season long. You get the